Saha. I'm a participant of the 46th batch of the Postgraduate Diploma in Management, Rural Management of the Institute of Rural Management, Anand, Trivandrum Sahakari University, and I shall be the Master of Ceremony for today's event. The first two rows are reserved for invited guests and faculty members, while the left side seats in the auditorium are allocated for media personnel. Our volunteers can help you find a seat. I request all of you to please put your phones on silent mode. Thank you. Today, we come together to commemorate the 13th Dr. Verghese Kurien Memorial Lecture, honoring the legacy of Dr. Verghese Kurien, the founder chairman of IRMA. This occasion also marks the 47th Foundation Day of IRMA, a celebration of its enduring journey and impact. We will begin this ceremony with an invocation hymn. This hymn is the final hymn of the Rigveda. It is recited upon the completion of education to promote harmony and inspire the resolution of disputes and differences, so that all consultations, discussions, and actions undertaken to achieve common goals are conducted in mutual understanding. It inspires us to set aside our differences, adopt a shared vision for the future, and unite our minds in the same way that the ancient deities, with one accord, accepted their share of the sacrifice.
Sanghachadvam samvadadvam samvomana sijaneta Sanghachadvam samvadadvam samvomana
Samanva
Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
We will begin with a floral tribute to our founder chairman, Dr. Verghese Kurien. I request our chief guest, Shri S.M. Vijayanand and Dr. Saswata Narayan Biswas to kindly present a floral tribute to Dr. Kurien. Thank you, sirs. I now request Dr. Saswata Narayan Biswas to kindly welcome and felicitate the Honorable Chief Guest. Today, we honor our best employees whose outstanding performance and dedication have set benchmarks of excellence for the institution, as well as those colleagues who are completing 25 years of distinguished service. This gesture would serve as a meaningful recognition of their commitment, perseverance, and invaluable contributions, and would greatly inspire the entire institutional community. I request our Honorable Chief Guest and Director, IRMA, to kindly felicitate Professor Madhavi Mehta on her 25 years of service to IRMA TSU. We now request our Honorable Chief Guest and Director, IRMA, to felicitate Ms. Trusha Joshi and Mr. Tejas Trivedi and bestow on them the award for Best Employees. Thank you, sir. I now invite Dr. Biswas for introducing our Honorable Chief Guest.
Good morning, and a warm welcome to all of you. This is a great day for all of us at IRMA. It's a foundation day, and we on this foundation day we try to honor also the memory of the founder, the spirit behind this institution. Because, of course, as long as Dr. Kurien was around, he was not in favor of instituting anything in his name. In fact, long back, sir, in one meeting I was having with him, that was, I think, a few months before he left, he stepped down. And I was, that time, which I of course repent, why did I say that? At the heat of the moment, I told him, Professor Haribandhu Panda was there with me that time. I told him, sir, why you did not name this institution as Kurien Institute of Management? And he blasted me. He said, that's not my style. Then he narrated that in another institution, how one of the founders, he had his bust sculpted and he himself garlanded it. He said, I don't want that bust to be made and I don't want the birds to pee on those, on my statue. So that is what he was against. So, but after his sad demise, we were thinking what to do, how the generations coming after, many years after, they may not know how do we do that. Well, one of the ways of doing it is to institute a memorial lecture. And the first lecture I remember when we were thinking about the person and the name of Professor Swaminathan, M.S. Swaminathan came up and immediately all of us agreed, yes, we should have him. And very kindly he agreed to come. So he accepted our invitation. And sir, we are very honored today that you have accepted our invitation to come to IRMA. Though you are not very new to IRMA, you have been a part of IRMA, I should say, and also continues to be a spirit behind IRMA, I should say that. It is customary to introduce the speaker of the day, and that's what I will do. Though Mr. Vijayanand does not need an introduction in this institution, I know that. He is the former Chief Secretary of Kerala and presently is also the Chairman of Center for Management Development, Trivandrum, with which IRMA has a very long-standing relationship. He has been one of the architects, major architects of what we call is the local self-government in the country. He worked for People's Plan campaign for 15 years, from the stage of conceptualization up to the reasonable development stage. And this experience of decentralization across, within the state of Kerala also helped him, I think, in many ways. That he brought into the national stage. And I remember my interaction with him when he was in the center. Of course, much before that, he was in the state, the Secretary of Rural Development, if I remember it correctly. That's the time I first met him. And everyone talks about that, his enthusiasm for rural development and decentralization, which Panchayati Raj was one of the instrumentalities through which he wanted to achieve. And his relentless work in this field actually brought about several transformations. First of all, it brought out a transformation in Kerala local administration, and which actually became a center for excellence in decentralization. And he actually headed its committee for 11 years, executive committee for 11 years. The Gram Panchayat, he was also the architect behind the Gram Panchayat Development Plan in 2015. And it has struck its roots in almost all states. And probably that is the most significant milestone in the history of Panchayat Raj in this country. So today, sir, I invite you to deliver the 13th Dr. Verghese Kurien Memorial Lecture. And his topic is SHG, Panchayat Partnership, Strengthening of Grassroots, Social Democracy and Political Democracy for Economic Democracy in Rural India. Please join me in welcoming him with a huge round of applause. Sir. Unfortunately, we have this.
I can manage. Respected Professor Biswas, faculty, students, and well-wishers of IRMA. I am associated with IRMA in heart and mind. I am Anand. First exposure as a trainee in the Masuri Academy way back in 1981, when they screened Mandan, and my professor explained the beginnings of the White Revolution. And we had an IRMA attachment as part of our training. I think it is 4 or 5 days. And we had the fortune of listening to Professor Kurien. Bureaucrats dreaded him. Those of you who know him, he used to be very abrasive with bureaucrats. So one of the statements he told was, if your wife is sick, there is no guarantee the doctor will come. But if my farmer's buffalo is sick, guaranteed veterinary care is there. I still remember that comparison of the civil administration and your cooperative administration. Then later I visited IRMA several times, one to motivate young people to come to Kudumbashree for internship. They did come, quite a number. And then I was a very active member of the governing body for I think 3 years. And I came out with a proposal, now I can disclose it. There was a great idea of Kurien that those of you who work in extreme rural areas in NGOs would be, your EMI would be written off. So that to get bright young professionals to, I think there's an idea which still needs to be pursued. Probably you can go to a good funder, government may not give. Good neutral funder in India, like Asim Premji, they may agree because they mentor hundreds of NGOs, including, I am now chairman of many NGOs, including Pradhan and School for Democracy and other kind of things. So we wanted to give 100 crores, which will be kept in a corpus. And then those of you, on a very, very merit-based thing, those of you who go to NGOs and work at a very ordinary salary, maybe 20,000 rupees a month, you will get the EMI waived. So that is one way of motivating. And then I've taken a lot of classes here on decentralized planning. Then one of the things which pained me, I still want to tell you, I wanted IRMA to do the status of Panchayat Raj study and devolution study of India along with Tata Institute of Social Sciences. I convinced the minister, I was Secretary Panchayat Raj, and IRMA quoted an unbelievably high sum. Shocking. You're working with farmers, you're working with this thing, and then I couldn't justify it to my minister. It was, I think, 6 crores plus. I could have managed as secretary up to 4 crores. And actually it would have cost much less than that. But unfortunately that was not to be. After that, Government of India took a very strange decision to outsource it by tendering. And I have not good quality tender since then. But now, anyway, there's no point in mentioning this. I don't know whether I should mention it. In 2016, I was Chief Secretary of Kerala. I got a call from a senior retired civil servant who was in the selection committee of IRMA director. He said, Vijayanand, can we propose your name? I was very tempted, but I said, sir, I am Chief Secretary now. He said, no, we'll wait till March 31st when you are retiring. But then I had left Trivandrum for a long time. My old parents were there. to spend another 4-5 days, 4-5 years outside Trivandrum. Though it was very exciting, I turned it down. Then I was your chief guest by default in your convocation. When Mohammed Yunus did not get the visa, they suddenly called me, and that is a very, very proud moment, standing here doing this thing. And now this prestigious oration, which I consider a real honor. I must thank you for that. Now, this is Dr. Kurien's day. We are celebrating him. And his vision, I've read a lot about Dr. Kurien and about IRMA, about your Operation Flood and all that. And he could realize his vision. Now we don't dare to dream. He could realize his vision of a peaceful revolution, taking on very, very powerful thing, very, very powerful commercial market interests through collective action, and succeed everywhere. Most of India, of course, not all milk cooperatives are outstanding like Amul, but they have struck root. And the biggest thing which even Dr. Kurien didn't think it will do, it withstood the onslaught of the 91 reforms. Now I think you can fight with anybody in the world on your terms, without any subsidy or without any special favors. That is the kind of thing which I want you to do for something else later. And this is, I fancy myself to be a Gandhian. So, real rural reconstruction. I've read practically everything about by Gandhiji on Panchayat Raj and rural reconstruction. Hard, productive work by the villagers, whom Gandhiji would have called toiling masses, combined with best professionals. So, that you must have been told hundreds of times. And you are now not only a successful market player, you're a market leader, I believe, and your products are really good. And it's not public sector, but it is more public than the public sector. So you can be really proud of that. And that proves something. I don't want to take any names in my life. A good technocrat, a professional, even a bureaucrat, combined with a selfless, capable, committed politician, can bring about changes which you can't dream. So when I was, for some national level seminar I was preparing, a person who is an IRMAN, formal IRMAN, he told me, sir, without Tribhuvan Das, how much would have Kurien achieved? Your first Kurien lecture was delivered by M.S. Swaminathan, how he combined with C. Subramaniam to produce an improbable green revolution. So, this is a big, big lesson. A good politician, clean politician, who has no vested interest. In the 40s and 50s, probably into 60s, politics was service and power was service. You can certainly not go back to that area. And then in the whole thing of self-help and mutual help, Swaraj and Swadeshi, that is Gandhiji's idea of rural construction. So, in a sense, it connects to my topic of SHG, Panchayat Partnership, especially Gram Panchayat, not the Jilla Panchayat and all that. Now, there's a very clear policy in Government of India, taken after great deal of prodding, that SHG should work with the Gram Panchayats. And this has fortunately been accepted in principle by all the states. But rolling out has been extremely weak. And it is not just out of some ideology, it is evidence-based. The experience of Kerala, not only Kerala, some other states where it is being tried out in small pilots. So, there's a potential for revolutionary shift in the paradigm of rural development, exactly like what cooperatives did in the 50s and 60s. And particularly if you see it in the larger dimension of democracy at the grassroots. I'm sure as students of cooperatives or students of rural management, what is one single ingredient of development at the local level? It is democracy. Genuine democracy. Not just first past the post kind of democracy, where people realize their power and part this thing. Then it is the foundation of economic development, sustainable economic development. I strongly believe, not from any theory, not from ideology, but having been a participant observer. I am an unusually lucky bureaucrat. I was in rural development, Government of India for 8 years, only rural development, in different, right from Deputy Secretary up to Secretary. And in Kerala, from a junior secretary up to additional chief secretary in charge of Panchayat Raj and Kudumbashree. Now, I'm sure all of you are familiar with Kudumbashree. Kudumbashree is kind of a word which every development student understands. So, this premise of democracy being the basis of development is rooted in the Indian Constitution, certainly enriched by the thoughts of Gandhiji and Ambedkar, and flowing from the experience of freedom struggle and validated by the experience of Amal. So what is political democracy? I'll use a Gandhian understanding of political democracy. Gram Sabha, not as we call the lowest tier. Gandhiji said, the center of governance, not only of the panchayat or the state or the country, of humankind. So from where everything emanates in concentric circles. And he called it the executive, judiciary and the legislature rolled into one. Not in the current legal terms. And Gandhiji was a very, very strong Republican. What is Republican? The citizen is the ultimate power. Individual is the architect of his governance, as Gandhiji said. And the power of public opinion, the highest power is public opinion. And he didn't believe in a passive citizenry, an activist citizenry, that every citizen is a satyagrahi. And it was an inclusive kind of local governance he wanted. He knew India's realities of division, particularly caste. And he said, to quote, primacy to the maimed, starving, toiling millions. And he wanted panchayats to fight social evils. And he believed in local economic development. Now, Khadi looks very antiquated. I don't think anybody will advocate Khadi in any village. But if you look at Khadi from a philosophical point of view, what is Khadi? Local skill, local capital, local technology, local knowledge, local market, and local understanding, local ownership. If you look at that, it is postmodern economic understanding. So, that was his idea of local economic development. Of course, Antyodaya, and the citizen will control authority, and if it exceeds, he will resist. A lot of accountability. And when you read Gandhiji on village, he actually has elements of a village plan. For want of time, I'm not getting into it. Then, of course, he understood this. Then, connecting it to the concept of social democracy. Of course, in the Western world, social democrats are there. Even Labour Party is a social democratic party. But Ambedkar had a very uniquely Indian understanding of social democracy. Liberty, equality, and fraternity. What is liberty? To use your powers. In a sense, capital. The principles of pure capitalism, not competitive predatory capitalism. You need freedom to innovate, freedom to produce, freedom for economic development. So that is important to management. Equality. He admits that equality is a bit of an ideology. People are not equal, but we need equality. It's a necessity for society to survive. And that is something which has to be looked after by politicians. But he said both of them will not survive without, what is it? Fraternity. And he said fraternity is democracy and democracy is fraternity. Fraternity is for the society to realize. So these three have to be realized and they have to function in harmony. And fraternity, he called it sharing, communicating. Somewhere I read in theory that the SHGs are democratic institutions. They deliberate. Of course, panchayats also deliberate. But SHGs are instruments of communicative democracy. What is communicative democracy? Without openly using words, you are able to communicate and convey a sense. And Gandhiji and Ambedkar took from another great thinker. He said democracy is a mode of associated living. Your cooperatives are associated living, of conjoint communicated experience. People need to communicate daily. Now the power of communication is weaker. It's all social media, very, very pungent at best, but very acrimonious and humiliating at worst. And we all, I don't think anybody can save ourselves from that. So I'm not advocating less social media. But this SHGs have a communicative democracy and respect towards fellows, dignity of the individual, and a peculiarly Indian term, social justice. It's a constitutional word. I think it comes in 3 places in the Indian Constitution. One in the preamble, then in the directive principles, then in the Article 73rd, 74th Amendment, the chapters. Social justice and economic development are the core functions of panchayats. What is social justice? More social than economic. A justice means correcting wrongs, many of them historical wrongs. And the biggest wrong was obviously the caste system and all other social wrongs, including atrocities against women. And Ambedkar remarked in one point, you would have read it, nothing is new. Democracy is a summer sapling. So unless you nurture it, it will, and nurture it for a continuous basis. So social justice is seen in reservations in the panchayats, and SHGs practice social democracy. They call themselves Didis, sisters. But I must admit they can't bring about structural transformation. I don't have that idealist view, but they can kind of blunt the sharp discrimination and do something. But they reduce visible social exclusion all over. And it's a lived experience. And what is economic democracy? So if these two are there, my premise is that economic democracy comes. What is economic democracy? Everybody is an economic actor. Everybody is active. Not that everybody will achieve big this thing. And a fair distribution is implicit in economic democracy. That's why it's called a democracy. So see this SHG network. Do you know how many SHGs are there in India? It's almost 10 crore households. All women have been brought under the organized SHG network. There are a lot of SHGs organized by NGOs. They are not counted. And it is almost 1 crore SHGs, 90 lakh plus. And increasing on a day-to-day basis. And a good number of them. And they have mobilized more than 11 lakh crore credit, what they call credit linkages. So all of them play little bit of economy. Even if it is buying food. So huge potential for this. And there is active inclusion, but not equally successful. So with this introduction, let me go into this topic of SHG Panchayat partnership. Do you know, it's very unfortunate that Panchayats have had it's a tale of missed opportunities. History of Panchayat Raj in India is a tale of missed opportunities. People tried at different points of time, but they never survived. I'm not sure they are very active now. It started off on a bad note. Gandhiji, Ambedkar divide. Gandhiji said, democracy. Ambedkar said, they are all cesspools of corruption, etc. Both of them were right. Not that Gandhiji was wrong or Ambedkar was wrong. Do you know who went for freedom, fight for India's freedom? I was born 10 years after India became free, but a lot of my relatives and elders, they had fought for freedom. Nobody had any expectation of gain. And after India got freedom, what did they go back? Very happily, they went back to their vocation. As farmers, workers, laborers, teachers, lawyers, and continued. Very few of them would have become MLAs. If they had gone back to India's 2.5 lakh panchayats and become the heads of the panchayats, the freedom fighters. Don't ever say ifs in history, but just think it would have been a different thing. So both of them were right. India went in for a big centralized plan. Nothing wrong in it. I'm a great supporter of plan. But they forgot panchayats. Then with Balwant Mehta, a spark came, extinguished by the events of the 1960s, 2 wars, famine, attention shifted to professional, technocratic kind of thing, the Green Revolution. Mrs. Gandhi came for the Garibi Hatao. She also ignored panchayats. It was done through managerial, DRDA, professionals, banks and all that. Then Karnataka and West Bengal took off after the Ashoka Mehta Committee report. Initial promise. Then the big dialogue, only time in free India's history where power to people was discussed in the political discourse, briefly. Then it was forgotten in all the scandals during Rajiv Gandhi's time. The Constitutional Amendment, 93, and initial inaction. Nothing happened in the after the Constitution was amended. India went on happily as before, except cosmetic changes to laws. Then, in 2004, they came out with the Ministry of Panchayat Raj, great expectations, but that is a mistake. All resources were with the Ministry of Rural Development and responsibility with the Ministry of Panchayats. In spite of an activist minister and bureaucracy, it didn't, this thing. Then MG and REGS gave a lot of hope because it is purely Gram Sabha Panchayat centric. But practically, barring 3-4 states, it is all done by the BDOs. Panchayats just affix their signature. Then the Finance Commission. I still remember a meeting in IRMA by the 13th Finance Commission under Dr. Kelkar. All the bigwigs of Panchayat Raj, including B.N. Yugandhar, Mr. V. Ramchandran and others came and lobbied for giving more money to panchayats. And that was a turning point. Panchayats got more money under the 13th, 14th, unbelievably huge amounts from Government of India. The Constitution doesn't mandate Government of India to give money to panchayats, but it only says it will strengthen and augment. But they generously give. You must have read in the papers, the RBI report which says in many states 90% of the resources with panchayats are from the union government, which is very, very bad understanding of Panchayat Raj. But then we started GPDB in 2015. It's just happening, but not huge potential is there. Then Government of India came on the idea of localizing SDGs, a very powerful idea. Then SHG Panchayat Partnership has a huge potential. And what are panchayats? I gave you the history of panchayats. They're essentially, the Constitution uses the word institutions of self-government with power and authority. What is power and what is authority? Power is what is given to you. Authority is to translate the power into action with its own resources, with multifarious functions, welfare, developmental, care and compassion, supervisors, managers of institutions, and they are institutions of local democracy. And they have something, we have a concept of residuary power in the Constitution. That's with the center. But panchayats have what is called intrinsic power. Just because they represent people, they are with the people, they have an intrinsic power, which even I didn't expect was best revealed during the days of COVID, when government practically vanished in most parts of India. The panchayats, SHGs, with civil society organizations, manage the front line fairly successfully. But I just want to make one point. You're all students of institutions. Could be cooperatives, could be anything else. Just think, is there anywhere, any place in the world, any country in the world, which has developed without an elected local government? Elected is very important. Even China is not a democracy. So elected local governments, they don't give them every power. They have certain niche area where only they can dominate. That we have failed, and I don't think we will succeed in the near future. The SHGs, they evolved very solely. Mahila Samajams in the 50s, women's groups, Dhokra groups. Suddenly, a kind of a revolutionary decision by the RBI that you can lend to groups, not for a project, just lend it, even for eating. That was a transformative decision. Then, of course, Mairada, Pradhan, they all started. It was mostly done by NGOs in the 90s. Then SGSY came, rudimentary women's groups. Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and Bihar, a little bit surprisingly, broke out and did excellent SHG work. Jivika there, in Kerala also Kudumbashree, Tamil Nadu had its own different names, and then it became quite successful. And Government of India learned from these SHG movements in these 3 states and came out with NRLM. So that is a brief history of SHGs. And what are SHGs? Local Association of Women of similar background, largely homogeneous, more homogeneous economically than socially, common affinity, sisterhood with relationship, and with a pre-existing corpus of relationships. So a rudimentary social capital, self-help and mutual help leading to voluntarism, and they are a combination of cooperative and collective. So that is a very important point, and they are a bit aspirational. And if you talk to SHGs, I've been, not recently, till 2018 or 19, I've done a lot of interaction with SHGs, even outside Kerala, less of Kerala after my retirement. They have something called hope. So hope is something which a poet described as, is a thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. So that is hope, lasting for long. Then they have a democratic culture, as I mentioned, decision making through consent. Then they are same assigned responsibilities, and there is something called solidarity among them. You should go, I am sure many of you would have at least seen SHGs. Some of you would be doing projects or internship with them, and they can be vehicles for demand, access, and you must have heard of that name, Aloysius Fernandez, who was the kind of a big person in Mairada. So he uses the word intrapreneurial, not entrepreneur, intrapreneur, saying that women will develop that capacity and they get support from other women for common objectives, not personal objectives. So it's a very, very fascinating social entity, and he even calls it is development without tension. What is development? You take somebody is compete. So I am dead against making SHGs compete. What is wrong with competition? You must all be greatly thrilled at competition. Competition is what pushes development. But among the poor, if competition leaves people who losers are never good for development, particularly at the cutting edge level. So my thing is that you should never make SHGs compete with each other, ask them to collaborate. If the cooperatives had competed with each other, what would have happened to Amul? I think there was some bad competition initially between Amul and some other milk unions, which later got ironed out. But this is very, very important. And there is a concept of power with. What is power with? Power of togetherness and power within. So the SHGs can arouse the power within, which we do, a bit spiritual kind of thing. And they have autonomy. And from my observation, it's not a theory, they have a ladder of empowerment. If you observe SHGs for a very long time, you will find that ladder is more or less validated by experience. There's no law, there's no which step will come first, which will go faster. You can't, people have to go up the ladder, starting with social capital. You understand, talk to each other. You become a group formation. Then it becomes financial capital. You get loans, I said 11 lakh crore. Then you have your own savings. You handle financial capital a little bit. Then your livelihood capital. Maybe a cow, maybe a goat, maybe your local orchard. So you get that livelihood capital. And then once you do that, the first focus is on health and education of children. Everywhere. And that will be the human development, human capital formation. And then comes the ecological, physical capital. Now that ecological capital is also very important, which comes along with livelihoods. Because their livelihoods are largely sustainable. So there's an ecological capital. Then comes the physical capital. You get a house, you get water supply under Jal Jeevan, PMAY, etc., etc. You get the physical capital. These are the 5 capitals listed in NRLM. From my experience, I've added 2 more, which are more important. The 6th capital is what I call civic capital. You are a citizen, you are a member of the Gram Sabha, you have certain entitlements, you can get it. I am a citizen, I will assert my citizenship. All the rights which are available, I will access. Then comes the last and ultimate capital, the highest rung in the ladder, political capital. What is political capital? Not joining a political party. Not becoming a panchayat member. That's not political capital. What is politics? Power relations. You have the capacity to negotiate power relations slowly. Resource allocations. We want this. Demand. So that is the political capital. So from this presentation, it's obvious that SHGs and panchayats should be working together. But why are they not working together? Did you think about it? It's one of the tragedy of India's development thing that they are not working together, basically because the divergence happened mainly because they were brought under different conceptual kind of thing. Many of them started as World Bank projects. World Bank was not very, for a long time, now they have changed a bit, that they are not very particular about local democracy, about political democracy. They are more interested in what they call community-based democracy. So they are not working together. Then people said, when I went to Delhi, I was seen as a threat. I was saying they should work with panchayats. And I was additional secretary in the ministry. But everybody said, no, it will distract them. Let them look at their own thrift, credit, and spending. If they look at panchayats, it will distract them. So that was some purist view. Then the politics of officers. Do you know officers and politicians are very comfortable with SHGs? Nobody is comfortable with an elected panchayat. Having been panchayat secretary, I can tell you, panchayats are quite messy. They can challenge you, they can question you. So even if your MLA doesn't like panchayats, but he or she likes SHGs. They are little timid. And they will listen to you, and the BDO says, do this. They may do, though they have inner democracy. So then there are a lot of misunderstanding about panchayats. Panchayats are corrupt. Yes, they are corrupt. But are they more corrupt than government? I've done a study. Even in Kerala, they are less corrupt than government. Though Kerala is supposed to be the least corrupt in the country according to Transparency International. At the local level, you can't be corrupt beyond a point. But for which there is a big caveat, you need to be given certain functions. Otherwise, nobody knows how much money panchayat is getting. Panchayat has to do functions which is not done by anybody else. Then people will clue on to you, latch on to you, you will develop. That's what happened in Kerala. Hospitals, schools, they are all with panchayats. So I don't think anybody will go to the collector for non-functioning of a hospital, and local democracy is quite strong. Then panchayats are feudal. There's a lot of casteism, much more than casteism is the male bias. The whole of central India, including Gujarat, is a sarpanch padi. So it's another big problem, liable to capture and all that. Then they are weak and powerless. So those were the reasons. But why should they work together? I've given you reasons why they didn't work together. Why should they work together? For larger empowerment for the SHGs. You can't just play around with some cash. You need to expand your activities. Then, to understand how levers of power are pulled in local democracy. It's very difficult to learn how state democracy functions. It's very easy to understand what I call learning by seeing how a panchayat functions. Then they say, okay, this is it. I may be out for 8 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. But sooner or later, I will understand how I can assert power. Even if it is confidentially in the vote. I can change the president. I can change the sarpanch, mukhya. So that understanding is very critical. The women need to understand the civic and political capital and a lot of other things. But much more than philosophical understanding and engendering development and all that is a practical bread and butter reason. What is the order of resources with panchayats now? Day before yesterday, it was in the paper that MGNRGS is being restructured into Pujya Babu Yojana. I'm a little worried because Yojana is a plan and other is a guarantee. So we don't know what will come in the act, and this thing is now just a cabinet decision. Let's hope for the best. But they have said 95,000 crore will be the central share, 92,000 a crore. So along with state share, it's certainly going to be more than 1 lakh crore. And I expect the 16th Finance Commission to give at least 75,000 crore, which is 2 lakh crore per year. This probably equals your defense budget. Shouldn't women get a share of it? Shouldn't women have a say in its allocation? Even if they get only 10%, it's a big, big amount. So, not for, I can say you, the political power, everything is there, but this is the bread and butter reason I need to ask. And panchayats can't say no. The numbers are in favor of the women. They are collective. They are articulate. And you can't say it. At least you'll have to give 20%, even by a most corrupt, feudal kind of panchayat. So that is very, very strategic. From the point of view of the panchayat, who should they work with? SHGs. Panchayats have very poor human resources. In UP and many central Indian states where panchayats are small, one secretary who is a lower division clerk looks after 10 panchayats, 5 panchayats. And I think about 30,000, 40,000 panchayats in India don't have their own buildings. So, panchayat requires human resource. This can be provided by the SHG. It's working very well. In Odisha, the revenue is collected. In Kerala, of course, they render all services, sanitation, health. We can outsource to panchayats. And there are a lot of trained accountants who can write the panchayat's accounts. Trained computer operators who can operate on payment, decent payment, reasonable payment. So it's a win-win situation. You don't have to hire persons. These SHGs can do. And SHGs can do very good extension. The community resource persons. They can take a development message to panchayats. The whole of Andhra Pradesh natural farming thing is done through SHGs. The CRPs of SHGs, not Agriculture Department. And they have covered more than 10 lakh acres. One of the highest in the world, not India. So, these are powerful support systems for panchayats. But I have another agenda. As I told you, the women reservation is fascinating. Nearly 40% now. Soon it will become 50%. More than 45% now. If you take the average in the country. But they are not empowered except in Kerala. So, this Didihood will embolden women. I think the professor was telling me yesterday, the women here who are coming, yes, they will work with SHGs. They are very happy to work with SHGs so that my power increases. Because these SHGs are 40-50% of the village, sometimes even 60% of the village. Then something which we didn't anticipate. In bureaucracy, we anticipate this will be the positive thing and negative thing and all that. In Kerala, where elections were held yesterday, nearly 60, I don't know the current thing, in 2020, nearly 65% of the elected women representatives are from the Kudumbashree background. Not only in Gram Panchayat, even in corporations, Jilla Panchayat, Block Panchayat, everywhere. And more importantly, that's even more important, in Kerala, you know, you have read in the papers today, it goes for purely political panchayats. The same LDF, UDF, NDA in Kerala panchayats. And when you look at the women distribution across political parties, it is proportionate. So which means it is a greater dimension. And women entering the entering the panchayat will naturally make the panchayat more responsive. Because they have a little bit of democratic culture, little bit of understanding of development. And this is not true of Kerala. I found in Bihar, I found in Andhra Pradesh, I found in MP that many of the SHG women get elected as panchayat members, or some of them even as panchayat presidents, head of the panchayats. So this is a very, very positive kind of development. So together, there is a great, great opportunity. So we need to use the opportunity, and for using the opportunity is not very difficult. And we all believe now in what is called evidence-based policy. And evidence you can find in 27 years of experience in Kerala. Verified, analytically verified. What are the positives? What are the negatives? By and large, it has been win-win. Women help the panchayats, they get the works, and the biggest surprise, which I never, I was in Kerala in the first 6 years of Narega, and then I thought, who in Kerala will come and work at these low rates? It's surprising. And we entrusted it to Kudumbashree for implementation. Why? Not because I thought women will do it very well, but there's a lot of corruption in the block. And I had a minister who didn't want corruption. So we said we will give it to the SHGs, they will not be corrupt, they may not be efficient. And I can tell you there is zero corruption in wages in Kerala and Narega. Materials, of course, the panchayat purchases and bit of corruption is there. And I looked at the statistics. Last year, 4,000 crore was Kerala's Narega budget. Huge. Kerala has 0.5% of India's poverty as per Niti Aayog. But they have spent more than 4%, 5% of the resources. Why? Because women are organizing. And 90%, 8 crore out of the 9 crore percentage are gone to women. And almost all of them from Kudumbashree. And unfortunately, many of them are 65 who will not get employed otherwise. That's a downside. I don't think it's a downside, it's a positive side. Assets may not be a very high quality. They are what is called productive assets. You can have a pond and all that. But they have got 2,782 crore as wages. And we, because of Kudumbashree's system and extensive banking, we said it shall be the savings bank account, not a pass-through account. So most of these women have it as cash. So huge. And this thing, then governance linkages, all the points which I mentioned, both have gained, very little tension. Now we need to apply this to other states. Other states have agreed. I am working in 4 states as a volunteer. There's no time, but I just want to mention some of us after retirement, I think about 6 or 7 Government of India retired secretaries from all over India, state chief secretaries, additional secretaries, etc. We said we have made it good in civil service. If you go and ask a bureaucrat, being a secretary of Panchayat Raj is not making good in civil service. It's not seen as a good job. You have to be Secretary of Industries or Secretary of Finance. But we thought we have made it good in civil service. We should give back to society. Of course, I am a little old now. I am 60, touching 68. But many of them were 61, 62 at that time. They compel me to be the chair. It's not, it is an NGO. We work in 14 states, including Tamil Nadu, Telangana, Karnataka, Odisha and Jharkhand. And these things I am trying to push, nudge. As a retired civil servant, you can't push. You're trying to nudge, convincing them this is the advantage of partnership, and states are moving but very, very slowly. So applying the partnership, very simple lessons from Kerala. The SHGs have to accept panchayat as local governments. And the panchayats have to accept SHGs as independent entities, not our subordinates. And we have to realize both of you will share information. And there will be an interface, a rational interface, norm-based interface, a rule-based interface, where you interact. Then it automatically follows. But you have to mandatorily work together. And help each other. I gave you how you can help each other. Initially, you need some troubleshooting mechanism. There will be some tensions, lack of capacity, etc., etc. And then this can become a very, very powerful instrument in pushing development and hopefully what I call the economic democracy. Now, to come back, to pull all the arguments together, yes, SHG is not a silver bullet. And many SHGs have ended up with good intentions, burdening the women. The gender burden has increased because everybody says give it to SHG. And they are not paid, which we were very careful in Kerala, you will get a decent payment. So women who are collecting waste in Trivandrum get around 18 to 20,000 rupees a month for 3-4 hours of work, which is Okay, not great wages. But many places they get 2,000, 3,000 rupees. So that we have to be very, very careful. So it's not a silver bullet. It can do nothing for the structural factors which create a lot of problems like social and economic. It cannot substitute redistribution. They are all very, very important, though we have forgotten it. And it cannot, SHG should not dilute purposive, strong, affirmative action by the state for quality human development. SHGs can only access what is there. But if you want to improve human development, the state has to act very, very decisively. For redistribution also, state has to act. But within the given constraints, SHGs can do very well. Again, to quote Aloysius Fernandez, I was really impressed by this quote, teaching a person how to fish may not be enough if the road to the river is blocked. It's a brilliant exposition of what is the reality in rural areas. Otherwise, everybody says Chinese proverb, don't give a fish, teach them how to fish, they'll be on their own. But when all these roads are blocked, it will not work. But we have to recognize, while realizing the limitations, recognize the good results in livelihoods and encouraging potential for social and public action. Silent, but huge potential for social action, mainly against alcoholism. That's been evident all over India, but not very much of public action. Realize the scale, the resources commanded, and you can create a for the people scenario. Why I'm saying for the people? It's by the people. It's of the people, SHGs. Panchayats are by the people. They elected. Now, combine them, probably they can go for a new equitable democracy for development, a dynamic, mutually beneficial, mutually strengthening relationship. Hopefully, giving justice, which I mentioned earlier. Of course, it is admittedly a vision. But when Dr. Kurien dreamed of beating Paulsons, people have laughed at him. Isn't it? You must have heard, actually people laughed at him. That you can beat Paulson. In Bombay then, you can take their market. Who would have thought? It's far more outlandish than my proposition of SHG Panchayat. Far more outlandish. So you need that vision, difficult but not unrealistic, is worth pursuing after a very cold-blooded, clear assessment of successes, slippages, failures, and the limits. Recall, I never said it's not a silver bullet. But potential is huge, underutilized potential. You really don't have to do anything. No money, no structure, nothing. Just get them work together. Give them a little bit of capacity. A small support. No cash involved, no additional time involved. But it's a setting off a process, setting off a relationship. So nothing is, as I said, nothing is per se. It will not automatically happen. But you need to catalyze from here. And here there are some, that's my last point, core lessons from Amul. People owned, professionally managed. So years ago, I think it must be 20 years plus, Dr. Thomas Isaac, who was a very enthusiast of SHGs, he is of course a Kerala academic politician, former minister, is my teacher. So both of us went and met Dr. Kurien and said, we want to try out this concept which you tried in cooperatives, owned by SHGs but managed by professionals. He immediately said it will work. But you can't hire professionals, you don't have the money. And government shouldn't hire. So he gave a via media, you said you form a kind of a company. And in Japan they have the third sector. Mitsubishi fellows and all the fellows go and sit in a local enterprise as the director board. When we conceived our corporate social responsibility, we forgot about this. You give 2%. That's not required. You have huge talent as management people, you understand. You give them on loan to these enterprises. And of course, ultimately enterprises will start competing with Tatas and Hindustan Lever. But in the early stages, they will not be competing, so there's no threat. They may give some advice. So you have to facilitate with the passion to develop the third sector and what are called social enterprises. I'm sure many of you would have studied Seva, but on a scale, lot of social enterprises could be started. Even for health, low end of health, even care of the elderly. Everything is possible. Social enterprises are possible. Some are already doing. Of course, I've been a keen observer of IRMA till now, because a lot of IRMANs I work with. I think when I was in Government of India, there was a IRMANs get-together, alumni of IRMANs. So I went there, they called me, not to speak, just to observe them. And to my pleasant surprise, practically everybody in the leading NGOs were IRMANs. All leading NGOs were IRMANs. Now that scenario doesn't exist. I don't think it'll go back. We are a different generation. I'm not saying it should go back, but I have a solution, very bureaucratic solution, called as is varies. I don't want you to go back to the Kurien days of working with cooperatives and walking in the mud and all that. Expect a decent salary, everything. But 2-3 small things I want to tell you. There is something called Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, which is on paper, not realized. The best institution in the country to realize Unnat Bharat Abhiyan is IRMA. And don't go to Kerala or anything. In and around Gujarat, or maybe a little bit of your neighboring states. Whatever I have told you, try to realize it in practice. It's not my advice, it's not ideology. It's a local policy, SHG Panchayat partnership. Localizing SDGs, GPDP. Wherever you are welcomed. Some panchayats may not like. I am sure how many students are there in a batch?
This batch is
300. So, don't go to 300 places. Form teams of 4-5. Have a cluster of 3-4 panchayats where you are wanted, where the district administration puts you in touch with the panchayat, and operationalize Unnat Bharat Abhiyan. It cannot be operationalized in 1 year, over a period of time. Hand it over to your successors. So you will create, like the original cooperatives, you can't have a chain up to the NDDB. You can't. You will only have distributed centers of excellence. What I call nurturing schools of practice. If 5 panchayats perform better, do you know, since I have taught 5 generations of panchayats in Kerala, panchayats learn better from each other than from us. You would also realize, Professor. So if they have a good practice, like Hivre Bazaar, even now people go to Pawar to study how we achieved it. Anna Sahib Hazare also came up through Panchayat Raj. So nurture these people, anger them, and let others learn from them. That will be a big. So you have a proactive policy, and IRMANs go as volunteers, and preferably taking 1 or 2 civil society organizations, because you can't be there forever. A local CSO. It will be a great this thing, and I expect, I think you have a center for local governments and all that, you know. Whatever it is. You have a center, a school, whatever it is. It should become an activist thing, and you can push it further. So this will connect it back to Dr. Kurien. So on this day, my message is, through this action, you can connect back to the great legacy. It's not a fanciful, promoted legacy, it's a real legacy. Many of our names are promoted. These days more. He is a great person. But some are evidenced. So this is an evidenced greatness, and not some hangy-pangy kind of thing. Not hangy-pangy. It's not a very frivolous thing. Real change. So that kind of change you can never do in Panchayat, but try. You have the concept of distributed working in IT. So do that thing, and thank you for inviting. Thank you for listening. Though I'm a civil servant with very limited hobbies, I'm very good at what I call human watching. When I watch, I can say how many persons are bored, how many persons are interested, how many persons may try out. When I was in the academy, we had an outstanding director, legacy. one P.S. Appu, he was associated with IRMA also. He used to tell us, if 10% of you implement 10% of what we teach in the academy, our job is done. So if you had listened, and if you can somewhere retain 10%, it will be worth it. Then a lot of you will ask, is it social service, going and working in a village? It's your learning. I have seen, I have myself been an interviewer, I think in 3 UPSC thing, people who have worked with the people, with ordinary people, even if it's physics or space, they perform better in interviews. I don't know the reason. You become, I don't know, something is set off in your mind. So if you go and work in the panchayats, preferably some point of your career, take a sabbatical when you have enough money to work this thing. Preferably earlier in the career, it will be a great, great learning for you. You're not serving, you're learning. And ultimately, when you take the lifetime earnings due to your work with the poor, it will double. We are all now fond of doubling everything. So it is doubling. So of that, and I leave with an offer of free services for anyone in IRMA. Of course, not all of you can contact me and get the services, to guide you in this with my experience. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you, sir. I now invite Professor Hippu Sakrisal Nathan, Dean Academic, Trivandrum Sahakari University, to offer the vote of thanks.
Honorable Chief Guest Shri S.M. Vijayanand ji, respected Director Professor Saswatnarayan Biswas, invited guests, participants, ladies and gentlemen. It's my privilege to propose vote of thanks on this 47th Foundation Day of IRMA. I, on behalf of IRMA, Trivandrum Sahakari University, extend my gratitude to the distinguished speaker, respected Shri S.M. Vijayanand ji, for delivering this edition of Verghese Kurien Memorial Lecture. Undoubtedly, as a student of development studies, I entirely enjoyed the lecture, and it surpasses many of our development lectures. My colleagues in development would agree to it. He not only narrated the historical account of the grassroots democracy and the challenges therein, also proposed a variety of possible solutions. In fact, he also mentioned about, as one of the solutions, about the Unnat Bharat Abhiyan. I would like to say, sir, that past few batches efforts in the Unnat Bharat Abhiyan at our institute has resulted a collaboration between the district fishery department and a fishing community in the Heaven village, where the community had got cycles and fishing equipment, which the community used to face during the, when the particularly the river recedes and the sea recedes, and they used to walk tens of kilometers to reach to the coast for the fishing activity, which our students have contributed immensely for getting that. And that activity we are planning to continue also this year in terms of studying the impact and seeing that particular scheme reaches to more fishing communities in the area. I thank the Director IRMA and the Director Office for all the efforts made towards organizing this lecture. Luckily, I must mention also we did have a ticket, which is in a different airline, so we didn't face the crisis of Indigo. Our deep sense of gratitude to the Honorable Vice Chancellor Padma Shri Dr. J.M. Vyasji, who unfortunately could not be here with us today. We are grateful to all the dignitaries, the guests from the media for taking out time to attend this event. I thank all the faculty colleagues, our participants both from the fellow program as well as the MBA program of the university for their active participation in the event. I thank all my colleagues from the non-teaching staff for all the arrangements towards making this event a success. I thank all of you to be part of this edition of Verghese Kurien Memorial Lecture on the occasion of the 47th Foundation Day of our beloved institute, Institute of Rural Management, Anand. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I request all of you to please rise for the national anthem.
जन गण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंधु गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल गंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्छल जलधि तरंगा तब शुभ नामे जागे तब शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तब जय गाथा जन गण मंगल दायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Thank you. The audience is requested to please remain standing till the chief guest and director IRMA exit the auditorium, and please join us for the high tea outside thereafter. At 2 p.m., join us for the inauguration of the Development Conclave 2025 at the Multipurpose Hall in Academic Complex, and at 4 p.m., please join us for the VFS Mela at the JKL Lawns.